it's Nurse Ogechi here again. We almost have heard about the lady who died through bleeding from a knife cut inflicted on her by her friend. Most persons are saying that the friends couldn't have really done much because they are not medical practitioners, but bleeding could happen to anybody, and it could happen when there is no doctor or a medical practitioner around. Now, I am here to give you first aid tips on bleeding. What should you do when you start bleeding or when someone around you is bleeding? The first thing to do in any emergency is to call for help. Call 911, call the police, call the ambulance, call the hospital, or anyone who would help you get the person to the hospital or to a health practitioner. You do that as soon as possible. Now, the second thing to do is to stop the bleeding. You can stop the bleeding by applying the red pressure on the wound using a clean cloth or a clean gauze. If that cloth or gauze or whatever you're using to apply the pressure on the wound gets soaked up, don't remove it. Instead, apply another cloth on top of it and keep applying pressure. Do not use a tourniquet if the bleeding is not severe. You only use a tourniquet if the bleeding is severe and refuses to stop even after applying pressure. If the wound happens to be on the limbs, raise the limbs above the level of the heart, as this will help to reduce the bleeding. If the bleeding stops, you can wash off the wound with warm water. Ensure to wash your hand before and after giving this first aid. Ensure you use clean materials while giving first aid. Ensure the clothes, your hands, the gauze, everything you use is clean. This is to ensure that infection does not set in from the bleeding site. Seek professional care. If the bleeding happens to be severe, the patient is at risk of having hypovolemic shock. In the case of this lady, she died of hypovolemic shock as she was bleeding severely and the volume of blood in her body was reducing drastically, leading her into shock from where she passed on. So do this whenever you are bleeding or someone around you is bleeding. This is a guide on how to apply a tourniquet in severe bleeding and when the bleeding refuses to stop after applying direct pressure to the wound for at least 15 minutes. See, knowledge is power. If her friends did all this I just said, maybe her life would have been saved. So it is important that we know this. Even as laymen, you can do something to save a life. Last advice before I go: avoid raising sharp or harmful objects when you're angry so you wouldn't make a mistake. I hope you found this video helpful. Do well to comment, like, and also share. If this is your first time seeing us, Ogechi, welcome, and don't forget to subscribe. Till I come your way next time, stay informed, stay safe.